Nice.
Jules!
I saw you join and you quit on us. What? You went to put some pants on or something?
Oh, there's video.
You have to unmute yourself, Jules. Command Shift.
This is really weird with two screens. This is odd with two screens. Like you get like a whole screen. I don't like it. I don't like this Zoom thing.
Well, you get whiplash. It's kind of cool.
I wasn't expecting Max to pop up without warning on my second screen, my peripheral vision.
Oh my God, Max!
I saw him disappear. It's like you joined in and you disappeared.
Oh, I joined and then I realized I didn't have my headphones.
I see. Okay.
Yes,
Right.
And then I went on the classic pre-meeting hunt everywhere for your headphones.
Nice. All right, so we have 7:59. So let's give people. We usually start at 8:03. So got a few more time. Got more people joining. Ruben. Moving more. And I think people are joining muted, so you have to Command Shift A or just click on yourself and then you can unmute yourself.
Hello, people.
Hey.
Ruben!
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go put some more vodka in this before we start.
Bit early, Wayne, but not judging. All right. This is gonna be good.
Don't forget he's on Buffalo time.
I see. Okay. So 3 hours, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost afternoon here. What do you mean? You're so
All right.
Chill one back with me, dog.
Okay, we got a couple more. Tom, Chris. And this is gonna almost deserve a picture when this board is filled. Actually, if we have no hiccup, hey Dan, all right. If we have no hiccup by the end of this, I'm convinced I'm gonna sell Zoom to IBM. This is too good.
Well, if you want, we could pretend there's a hiccup and kick you off, and then you'll be like, "Oh, the connection dropped."
Yeah, well, I mean, part of the reason is I'm impressed that people are joining and they're actually removing themselves from video, but I can still see the video at times. So
I saw you.
yeah, exactly. That's pretty good.
No,
All right, so yeah, we have 8:01, so we'll start in 2 more minutes, but we get more. Actually, there is a number, so I don't know who that is.
Yep, that's a dial-in.
Okay. Oh, I see. So people can also dial in. That's pretty sweet.
Yep, same as the conference call, and those that can join in video and audio can join video and audio. Those that dial in, and then they look like a phone instead of like a person.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So Jules, you do have to mute yourself if you're gonna type. I hear you.
I was muted. I just clicked the mute button to mute myself, and like it unmuted me. This is.
So it's a single click, not a double click.
No, I muted him.
I prefer Slack. I'm going back to Slack.
All right. So we get Alex also. All right. So 1 more minute, guys. We'll get started. I don't see Chip yet, but I guess
He's real chipper this morning.
yeah. No, Chip is pretty good at joining. He'll come.
So you got the whole, like, I mean, what's the deal here? You're all by yourself in this wonderfully gorgeous big room with whiteboard walls.
I know. And I'm at Pivotal too, so I think folks from Pivotal, they join. They do come. We should get Yui and Eric.
I was too lazy to go into the office this morning.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I'll see you later. All right. Okay, so 8:03, let's get started. This is first time trying Zoom, and I'm so happy Wayne suggested this. I think this is gonna change the way we do these calls. So
I don't like it.
Just remove yourself from view, Jules, if you don't like it. But
No,
this
I'm
is great.
staying here and looking grumpy for the rest of the call.
Oh,
That's
I
fine.
see, I see.
Well, somebody's got to fill that role. Where are the other 12 dwarves or 7? What was it again?
Yeah, 12. Oh, yeah, you might be right, 7. I don't know.
I can definitely be Doc. I spent 5 years earning the right to be Doc.
And,
Well, they
it's
don't dock
interesting.
them, hey?
It actually, okay, so this is working out. Hey, we got Eric here. So anyway, this is fantastic. I think one thing, Wade and I were chatting about this before, that we have a representative from Zoom that basically increased the capacity to 100. So maybe, Wayne, you can introduce it and briefly mention.
I would, but I don't see him on, actually. Brian, is he coming or?
No, I don't think he's joining the call.
I see. Okay.
I
Well,
see. He was intimidated by us. Well, that's fair. So, hey, everybody, this is a tool we use a lot for remote work, remote pairing. It's very high bandwidth, very nice. Obviously, it works well with a lot of people. And it's called Zoom. Zoom. As a lot of you probably figured out by clicking on the URL. In order to mute and unmute yourself, on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen is usually a little microphone icon. That's also where you can adjust your settings. There's usually a little up arrow next to them. You can choose different speakers and microphones and things like that. Same thing for the video in that location. And if you're on a Mac, it's there's also hotkeys on Windows as well. But the Mac one is Command-Shift-A to mute and unmute yourself very quickly and easily. And welcome to the first inaugural Zoom cab call.
yes, indeed. Thank you, Wayne. Any question for the Zoom? No? I think this is going to work out well. So if you have comments or question, I guess let us know. So we have an agenda. So if you go through the link for the agenda, there's a little bit. I think I was hoping Chip would be here to cover anything on CFF, but I'll mention a few things as, you know, I don't know if he's going to join. First thing is the summit is coming, of course, it's June 13th to 15th in Santa Clara. So it's going to be similar to what we had before. The key important information is that the proposal, the talk proposal deadline is coming up on the 17th. So basically a few days from here. So I think Friday at midnight. So if you have something that you're trying to submit, or your team, make sure to remind them. I think you can not only just propose talks, but you can also propose panels and other things. So if you go to the link that I have in the agenda for the CFP, then you can see the kind of things that are being requested.
Does that include drum and guitar jam sessions? I mean, is that like totally legit as well? Or only ukulele sessions?
No, actually, if you submitted something like this, especially if you can have like a CF band, that I think a few people would join. So yeah. All right. So don't forget to submit. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's really about, you know, community. So you got to propose your talk. All right. So usually what we do is to see if there are any project highlights. I know Dimitri is on the call. DK, you here? I saw you join. No, you have to unmute yourself though.
Can't escape. Yeah, I'm here.
All right, thank you. I've actually joined Dimitri's team, so I'm working for him as usual. So I asked them, as a condition, you have to join those calls and tell people what cool things are happening on BOSH, because I can't do it better than you. So maybe like a few minutes.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
We've been, BOSH team has been working a lot on implementing and closing down the config server integration, which will allow us to use the director with upcoming open source CRUD hub to manage all the credentials for BOSH deployments and to automatically generate them. So that's very, very close to being completed. we have an upcoming BOSH release 261 that will include majority of it. And then after that, we'll do some additional polishing. We've been also working on adding multi-CPI integration, thanks to some contributions from Swisscom and IBM. That's also going to be in the upcoming release, but with a beginning caveat that right now you'll be able to use it only against the same type of CPI, and then the next release will allow us to use any combination of CPIs. So that would help out, customers who are trying to, let's say, run a single cloud foundry across multiple OpenStacks, let's say, because they don't necessarily want to use OpenStack AZ concept. Or maybe, if you have multiple vSphere installations and you want to connect the two data centers together, that kind of stuff. So that's quite exciting. And of course, eventually it will allow us to, for example, combine, usage of, let's say, any IaaS like AWS and BOSH Lite, for example, if you want to be maybe running your errands or maybe doing some compilation on a BOSH Lite configuration, and actually deploy the workload onto a different set of machines. So yeah, that's kind of two highlights that have been coming along for some time. We've been, of course, working on a variety of other fixes and features. Actually, one more that's really kind of a big one is upcoming general availability of CLI v2. We've been trialing it with a lot of people, a lot of teams. So it's more or less complete in terms of any kind of missing features that were present in old CLI, but we haven't released it yet because I haven't had the chance to really complete all of the documentation on BOSH.io for the new CLI. But yeah, that's upcoming as well. In fact, that's probably more or less blocked on me finishing up the documentation. What else that worth mentioning?
Wasn't me. Oh, sorry.
There's probably I don't know how many people are kind of keeping up with the CLI v2 work, but with CLI v2, it kind of subsumes the BOSH init functionality into two commands: create env and delete env. And with those two commands, we actually pulled out this new repo out of, I guess, main BOSH repo that's called BOSH deployment. And BOSH deployment is a repo that really contains all of the YAML configurations that are typically documented on BOSH.io, but we used to expect that people would kind of change them and maybe drop them off somewhere in their configuration folders and so on and so forth. But instead of doing that, nowadays with the new CLI, we are having all these configurations recorded in the BOSH deployment repo, and we've made it such that it's very easy to let's say enable UA functionality on your director, or maybe enable config server functionality on your director. That repo is kind of our master copy for what is the recommended way to configure the director and configure all the stuff around the director, like UA integration and so on. So I expect that majority of BOSH.io documentation that will be updated to use CLI v2 would actually be referencing BOSH deployment repo to effectively say run this one command to enable UA. And if you want more details on what exactly is being dropped in, looking into the UA operations file that describes what exactly are we turning on and turning off. So that's been kind of a side effect of switching over to CLI v2 for some of the teams is they're now not have to think about maintaining their used to be BOSH init manifests. They just pull down the BOSH deployment repo and opt in into the features that they really care about for their environment. And of course, all the passwords and certificates and all that get generated, so users don't have to think about this as well. So I don't think I have any other bigger updates.
No, that was great.
To
That
mention.
was great. Thank you. We knew Americans could control Russians. Thank you. Just kidding.
That escalated.
Thank you, Dimitri. Any questions?
So you said you're working on documentation. I was assuming that's like also going to include like, here is how you transition from working with the V1 CLI to the V2 CLI. And I think you had a little bit of that, but is that going to be fleshed out more? And is that what I was hearing? Was that's the kind of the focus?
Yeah, whatever documentation existed for CLI v2 up to now was really just some notes that are written down before, just to not forget mention it. But yeah, there has not been any official documentation for CLI v2 has been published. So that's definitely one of the efforts that needs to happen before we release.
But that shouldn't prevent people from trying it, by the way, because there are some little quirks here and there that you need to learn, but once you get that, it's pretty straightforward. So, especially for
there
people
is a document on BOSH.io as well, Dr.
Right.
Wayne,
Yeah.
and I'll just link to it here in the Zoom call.
Yeah, that's the document that's really not the final documentation, so it will get a lot better.
So just so everybody knows, please use Slack for all chats, not the Zoom's chat, so that we all have a public record of the, we're going to keep using Slack for that one. Thanks.
Yeah.
Roger that. Thanks.
Good way. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Dimitri. That was really good. Cool update. So maybe we can do the other main projects if you have highlights. I mean, you don't have to give a huge update like Dimitri did. If you want to just highlight something, I guess, Eric, Diego, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I think I had mentioned on previous calls efforts to reduce our dependency on Consul. So we've been doing a lot of work around that. The most mature of those is running the route emitter component in a cell local mode. And we think that's pretty much done. We look forward to exercising it with more rigor in production environments, since we're not aware of any outstanding bugs with it. And then we're also exploring moving the locks, the components such as, say, the BBS and the auctioneer and the cells maintained for their presences out of Consul into something that's just backed by the BBS's relational database. So there's more experimental work going on there, trying to meet the kind of responsiveness that we've had from Consul locks in terms of fast failover and recovery from more drastic failures of those components that are active. And then we've also started doing some initial work on an effort to start providing a notion of per instance identity, so generating a certificate key pair for instances to use that are signed by the platform. So again, that's pretty early. We have a few cases in mind for how this can be useful on the platform, and there's a proposal I had sent out to CFDev a few weeks ago. So if you have thoughts or commentary around that, I'd certainly appreciate it.
This is integration with CredHub.
So this is one thing that this will allow. One idea that we have in mind, one use case for this is services storing their sensitive service credentials directly in CredHub, and then applications being authorized to get those credentials out of CredHub directly using these credentials.
By the way, when you say instance, you actually mean app instance, right? Not the cell machine.
Correct, yeah, right. So each instance of an app or of its staging task or one-off app tasks will have a unique set of credentials that identifies it.
Yeah. All right, any other question for Eric or Diego?
Yes, I got one.
Hi, Wayne.
Doesn't that guy ever shut up? Anyways, So Eric, a quick question on the Diego Docker story stuff. So I was aware that you guys were currently actively, as of January, working on the the authentication for Docker images and stuff like that against repositories. Where is all that stuff at?
So I think it's still kind of down at the garden level at this point. I think it looks like Jules is on the call. He might be able to provide a little more detail. Effectively, all of the action there has to happen when Garden or the new GrootFS component actually pulls the image from a Docker registry or repository that requires authentication. So we're expecting the bulk of the work to happen down there. And then effectively the rest of it is just wiring. There's one additional piece to that where when we're doing a staging task for a Docker image-based app, we also need to have those credentials available. So we have to change something in the Docker app lifecycle builder. But I think there's a proposal document that has been circulated to some extent, soliciting feedback on the APIs that we'll have to run through at the Diego and Garden layer to just flow the Docker registry credentials through the system down to the Garden site that pulls the image.
If you want to comment on that, you might want to get in quick because our second story implementing that just shipped today. So we're pretty far down the track.
What was that word you said? Just what?
You're going to have to give me more context. We're pretty far down the track.
Story just
shipped.
Okay.
So we're 2 stories in on the Garden side. So if that gives you an idea of how it's going.
Awesome.
I see a few questions for Diego. Are those all answered? Because there's one also, the Garden and new GrootFS component.
Those are notes based on what he just.
Notes. I see. Okay. All right. So maybe we move the notes to the section. I guess we can do this after for these, but let's leave this part for questions. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Well, that was Wayne's question. So
that was the question.
This is the answer of the question. All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That's cool. Okay. Any other questions on Diego or I guess Garden Runcie?
Go, Diego, go.
No. And actually at IBM, we've pretty much transitioned. Even the apps also are customer apps. I think there were a few left, but you can't force people, I guess.
You can.
Sure.
And that's how it's done.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, we actually built a plugin to force it over. Just use the admin credentials, Max.
I don't control these things, so I believe it was almost completely transitioned. I don't know, Jules, if you have more information on that. But
I can't remember what the exact numbers were, but yeah, I saw them the other day. There's almost no apps still running on the old one.
It's default too, so if you push an app now, it's pretty much.
Yeah, it's basically the only ones that are running are the ones that they tried to migrate and failed and then panicked and rolled back.
Right.
So it's a small number.
So this is old news, of course, for everybody else, but new news for us. Anyway, okay, so unless there are any questions, we'll move on to see if there's an update on CAPI that's worth mentioning.
Zach is on the line.
Oh yeah, Zach. Hey,
You
Zach.
want to introduce yourself, Zach?
Hey everyone, I'm Zach. I'm the new PM for the CAPI team. I was previously an engineer on the CAPI team ever since it existed, so been around for a little while. Let's do a quick update. We sort of have 2 main tracks of work. One is finishing off compute isolation segments. The functionality was done probably around this call last month, but we got some feedback from the CLI that asked for some updates to the API. We also solicited some users to try and move some apps into some isolation segments. That it was difficult to do since we were requiring people to have a new space to move apps into. So people with existing apps were a little sad that their service instances and routes and stuff might disappear. So we relaxed that restriction, and so now you can apply isolation segments to spaces with existing apps. And then if you perform like a blue-green deploy, you'll get your app moved over into an isolation segment. So that works pretty close to being done, and we're thinking the CLI will start building out commands probably in the next week or two. So hopefully by this call next month, we'll be able to say that compute isolation is live and done. So that's going good. Our other main track of work is securing our communication path to other components. That has essentially meant that most of the CC bridge components are being removed and instead sort of pulled into the cloud controller, so that we just talk directly to Diego components, and we're doing that over mutual TLS. So that works in flight. There's quite a few components. We've probably got through, roughly half of them being consumed by the CC now. We've got another little ways to go. And then we'll get some docs out and start telling people how to transition that. That pretty much covers what we've been up to.
Cool, thank you, Zach.
There's a couple like very small items I'd like to highlight as well, the recent functionality, which is we now have support for a global auditor scope. So this is more or less like an auditor, the permissions that you'd have, access that you'd have as an auditor, but without actually having to be explicitly added to those spaces of orgs. So you can have an auditor that doesn't have access to VCAP services for all of the apps, for example, which has been somewhat long requested. So that's one nice thing to check out in the latest CF release. And the other one small life improvement is that we added support for an HTTP health check. And CLI added support for this with their latest release. And so if you have an app that wants to signal more explicitly whether it's ready to receive requests, it just needs to implement a health check endpoint and return it to 100.
Cool. Okay, thank you, Yui. Any questions for CAPI, I guess for Zach, Yui, or anybody else?
CAPI makes us happy.
Yeah. Okay, I don't hear anything. So let me give a quick update on CF extensions. So you guys saw that we had a process proposal. Part of the idea there is to make sure that people go into this with their eyes wide open and understanding what's going to happen next. It's a commitment for us working in the community, but also it's a commitment from you if you submitted something that you want to be an extension. And what I want to try to do is to make sure that every project that's submitted actually goes through or gets booted out, so that we can have a stream of extensions, but also we vet them and they go through the whole process. So I think generally it's a not controversial process. So if you get a chance, make some comment. Otherwise, that's pretty much going to be quote unquote the law, right? So one example of this is that a backup service broker that SAP submitted is actually gone through a little bit of it because it came after we had the process, but essentially it's incubating right now. So I created a project space for them, and there's actually a team at SAP that's started on that. Another good example of this is the Cred Hub. So when Dimitri was talking, he talked about the fact that config server is an API, and there is an implementation that the BOSH team did, but there's also a more complete implementation that also Pivotal did called Cred Hub. And then he's on the call right now and presented, I think maybe two cabs ago, is an implementation of this API that is more complete. And Pivotal has submitted it to the extensions group. And right now, I think it's at a point where they want to move it to a vote. So after this call, I will send an email and asking if there are any comments. That's your last chance. Otherwise, we are just going to do a vote, and hopefully if it goes through, then you'll see next time a CF incubating project where Dan and his team will have everything, and you can just go and check it out. Okay. There's a series of other proposals in extensions. One of the things I've been trying to do is to collect them because I'm creating a little hub. I've actually took both Yui's advice and Dimitri's, where the database is actually going to be GitHub. So there's a few rules I'm going to have to put on, you know, how you tag your projects and so on, because I'm just pulling that information from GitHub. So we can talk about that once I'm ready to make that public. But for now, I have a doc that's collecting those projects. There's actually a couple of them that are often, sorry. So I'm just gonna assume by the time I send the next email, if no answers, that I just get rid of them. So basically, we'll only have projects that are active and that are, you know, valid. I'll put the link of the collected project URL, so that way people can go check it out. So any questions for extensions? We have a call. It's the last Monday of the month, so easy. It should be coming, I guess, next week. So if you're interested, join. There's a few people that join, but certainly not as many as you. Okay, cool.
Separately.
Yeah.
I see Shri is on the line as well.
Oh yeah, Shri, do you want to give us a quick update? Do you have something highlight of UA, I guess?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Awesome. We got the 3.10 release out. The release notes are up as well, and it is part of CF release 252. There are some breaking changes in this release, so please read the release notes to get an understanding of what those are. And apart from this, the next major version of UAA is going to be 4.0, and we have plans to do some consolidation around configuration properties. UAA has, you know, like a legacy login.yaml that is from the days when login server and UAA were separate. So we have plans to consolidate it for ease of use and documentation as well. So that is one major change that is going to come in 4.0. Apart from that, there will be some other changes as well. I have plans to basically send out a note on the CF dev list with the plan for 4.0. Nothing else from me.
All right, thank you, Shri. Any questions on so far? I guess give everybody a chance.
Yeah, one question. The CredHub, it was about the previous point about CredHub. So I found a CredHub repository, but there's a link to a CredHub BOSH release. Is that? But then I get a 404. Is that not open source? That part?
Yeah, right now that the BOSH release is still private because we're working through some licensing issues with the clients that we pull in. As soon as we finish that off, we will open that as well.
Yeah, because it makes it easier to test, right? When there's a BOSH
Mm-hmm.
release. Maybe.
Yeah, you can certainly run it locally with one of the convenience scripts that's in there, but yeah, it's much easier to test if you can BOSH deploy it.
Mm-hmm. By the way, regarding that, I guess when CredHub becomes available in a BOSH deployment repository, there is a CredHub YAML that Dan and his team contributed to opt in into using CredHub with BOSH Director.
Yeah, okay. So for the community in general, maybe it makes sense before the vote to have that part be open source or something, so that people at least can use it before voting.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. I think you should make a. I mean, I can make a note of that in my email. But if you feel strongly about this, you can just comment on Dan's proposal saying that that you want to see it. That is fair. Sure. Okay. I do know they've been working on it to get access to everything for the past 2 weeks. So hopefully things will open up soon. So. All right, cool. Thank you, Ruben. Any other questions on anything so far? Because we're going to move to the next part of the CAP call.
I was actually curious about that request. I don't think we've ever, for any of the projects in the other PMCs anyway, not at least not the runtime PMC, for example, we've never required an explicit BOSH release before accepting a project.
All right. Yeah, that's not, I don't know if it's a requirement to accept it, but it's a question to say, hey, you know, I'd like to try it. I can't even try it. So I think that's fair.
Yeah, the point, it was because there was a BOSH release mentioned in the README, and then I followed the link and I saw the 404. That was more like the reason. It's not because there needs to be a BOSH release, but I saw there was one, but it was not. Sorry.
Yeah, cool. I guess you can work with them also to get access to it, you know, hopefully. Okay. But I think part of it also is to, I guess, the overarching goal of the process is to move things forward fast. So we want to remove, you know, hurdles. But I also want the community to be able to chime in at any point in time and voice their opinion. So we'll figure it out, I guess, for this particular case. Any other questions, comments? Is Brian having skiing right now? Oh no, okay, he's just walking.
Oh, yeah, he skis every morning to and from school.
Hey, I was gonna be like, I'm jealous.
He likes looking down at us.
I wanted to ask or highlight, there's a few active proposals that have been posted to CFDev recently, and appreciate additional feedback if you get time, even if you like it, hate it, that's great. In particular, there's the multi-build path proposal on CFDev. The logger data team has a couple of proposals about their independently scalable syslog. I think their most recent one was Logator health check nozzle. So if you get a chance, please take a look at those proposals and comment and provide your input.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big part of what we're trying to do, I guess, for this year is to get a handle of all these proposals. People are doing work, so the community needs to chime in. And we're going to assume that if you don't chime in, that you're happy. So chime in, please. Okay, let's see if there are any questions that were posted on the agenda. I don't see anything that wasn't answered yet. So if you don't have any questions, this is, I guess, the first part of the program where we just cover projects, PMCs, basic stuff, highlights. And then now we're going to move to community projects. And as I mentioned, our friends from Stock and Wayne are super busy. I guess they've been busy for years, so they have a list of projects, I know. And Wayne has been very good at, getting me in contact with a bunch of different teams. So pretty much every month you're gonna see something from Stock and Wayne, unless somebody else has a project, and we're gonna try to do 2 of those, right? So that we can go deep into each. And last time we covered Shield, but there was no demo. And because it's such a, I guess it's a big project and it's pretty nice, what we are gonna do now is to do a demo. So I think, Wayne, you can take over the screen and, I guess maximize it so that your colleague can do a live demo, right?
Cool.
All right.
John, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Don't worry, everybody's watching. I mean,
everyone's watching their laptops and reading Slack. No. So my name's John, if you can't tell from the name on my Zoom title there. I'm a cloud engineer at Stark and Wayne, which is fun when I tell people that aren't technical related, because we say cloud engineer, I think they just imagine we like boil water or something. I don't know. But anyways, so I'm going to be talking about Shield. Specifically, I'm just going to be giving like an overview of the project. So can you guys all see my screen? Yep. Okay. Probably everyone's muted, so they all said yes, and I can't hear you. So I heard one yes, so it's good enough for me. Yeah, so this is the repo that it's in. It's under Stark and Wayne, and Shield is basically used to back up and restore a bunch of different systems. We've designed it in such a way where we have a plugin system where what you're actually backing up, we call a target, and then the way that we actually save these backups uses a plugin called a store. So if I scroll down here a little bit, we have this nice table where you can see all the different things that we can back up, which would be under this target, and the things that where we can actually save our backups to. So if you just click on any of these, you get this documentation that shows you how to configure it. So the cool thing is, this is an open source project. If you see something on here that you say, hey, this would be really cool to add in, like by all means, you know, make it, submit a pull request. They're actually not overwhelmingly complicated here. So this is the Postgres one, and the first 80 lines is documentation, but the entire Go file is 300 lines, you know, minus 80 lines for comments. So it's actually not as crazy as you might think. So you can look at any of these different plugins to be able to implement one. So anyways, about like a few weeks ago, I was working with a client and I had to get familiar with Shield. So what I did is, normally we just deploy this using a BOSH release. But what I went through and did is create a local version that you can run inside Docker Compose. So this is a new addition just a few days ago. So if we go to the dev folder inside Shield, you can just set up Docker Compose, and I have a bunch of directions in this directory in the README on how to set it up. It's pretty straightforward. And what it will do is it will actually spin up a web UI, so you can actually go through your browser to do backups, restores, target, all those different features that we have. Shield also has a CLI. The CLI has more features, and that's kind of like where we implement things first, and then they kind of trickle into the web UI. Yeah, so this particular README has examples on how to use the CLI, and it doesn't show every single command, but it gives you like a good run through on how to use it. But what I'm going to do is show the web UI, and then if anyone wants to go through and kind of play around with the CLI, you can look through this README, and you can run it in Docker Compose setup, or you can do it on a BOSH release, or you can do it however you want to set up Shield.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's Docker? Is that like something like Garden?
It's a subset of.
Yeah, it's yes, it's a subset of Garden. Yes.
Got it. I thought I'd heard of it somewhere.
Yeah, you might have.
It's the non-production version of Garden.
Right. Open
Yeah.
source version of Garden.
I do have to admit I like Docker for local development stuff. So yeah, I have to throw that out there. So I'm a little biased, but I can tell you're not biased at all. So that's
Docker's
good.
local use case is great. I'm only joking, I promise.
No, it's good. I'm glad you broke the ice a little bit. Now more people are paying attention now, so that's good. Yeah, throw humor in there once in a while, right? So where was I? No. So basically, you can just clone the repo, and then you can just run Docker Compose up, and that will, this is like Vagrant up. So I don't know if I really need to go into this much detail, so I apologize if everyone's like, yeah, we know. So, so what I'm going to do over here in my terminal, I'm just going to run the command Docker Compose up. Yeah, so I just used Docker Compose because I wanted to just see what it was like to use Docker Compose. But so I didn't have any real particular reason. But it's got several different services in here. And what I did is I went through the Shield BOSH release and then kind of copied that to make this Docker Compose, setup. So anyways, so we have Shield running here. I'm going to go over to the web UI.
So you can talk about how it connects to CF also. That would be good.
Okay. Yeah, I think I might ask one of the other people at Start Going to do that because they have more experience with that than me. But I think we have quite a few Start Going people, so someone in the collective knowledge can pull it up, I'm sure. So anyways, yeah, we'll definitely bring that up. Thanks for asking. So if you just go to HTTPS and then it's configured to do localhost, it's using a self-signed cert, so your browser will complain at you or whatever the first time you run on the setup. But so if you look here on the web UI, we have this idea of retention policies. So you can create one. Basically, I already created one for 10 days. But I could click this button and I fill out this form. So basically what that is like how long are your backups going to stay around? So, in this particular case, I just did 10 days, just for the demo here, but maybe you have a lot longer one. I think on some of our clients, we've done ones where we'll maybe do like an hourly one, but then those only stay around for like maybe 4 days or something like that. And then they start clearing out. And then you have ones that are maybe daily and those ones stay for longer. So you can kind of mix and match how you do backups with how long you retain and how often you schedule. So you have that flexibility. So schedule is probably, sorry, was someone going to ask a question or no? Okay. So the schedule is just what you would think. You could say, I want to do daily at 10 a.m. I want to do it hourly at, every, at when the clock starts, whatever, 15, 20, 30, whatever. So I set one up for a daily backup at 10 a.m. And then your targets are going to be the services that you want to back up. And this is where Shield, like I mentioned earlier, has abstracted targets and stores in such a way that makes it really easy to implement. But then obviously every service has its own unique configuration. So that's where we have this configuration field where you can drop in information that's specific to that service. And that's determined by whoever writes the plugin. So however the plugin wants to do it, that's how you get your configuration for that. So right now it's just a JSON blob that we drop in, but in the future we'll probably make it a way where the plugins will actually say what fields they need, and then you have a slightly better user interaction here rather than just dropping in a JSON blob. One other thing of note here where it says remote IP port, that's going to be the Shield agent that's running. I'm not going to get into too much crazy detail here, but you have a Shield daemon, that's the actual server that's accepting API requests. Then you have a separate, in this case it's a Docker container, but it would be its own VM typically. And this is where you would enter in the IP address or host name and port for that Shield agent that's configured. And that's the thing that will go and actually directly talk to Postgres, to MySQL, to whatever service you're backing up. So just make sure that that box can talk to that service, and that's good. And then the Shield daemon needs to know how to talk to that. So you just put the IP address in for the Shield agent and its port, and that's how that works. So I already created one for Postgres, and where we're actually storing it, I'm just using the file system plugin. But if we go back to the documentation here, you can see that we also support S3 and Scality for storing backups. So that's your current options. Like I said, you're welcome to, shameless plug, you're always welcome to write a plugin and submit a pull request. Those are always greatly appreciated. So this is, the configuration is pretty simple here. I'm just setting where I want to store that. But there's also other fields that you may think of that you may use, but those are all documented if you go into the README here, and we just go to like file system, and we'll see up here where it says plugin configuration. All the plugins have a section like this where it will show you the fields that are optional, the fields that are required, and then maybe what the default configuration is. Shield out of the box just assumes that it's going to be running in the BOSH release. So there's a few fields that you may need to like override if you're running it not inside BOSH. But who would do that, right? Everyone uses BOSH. So Yeah, and then the last little piece here is a job, which actually pulls in all the different pieces that we've just made. So you give it a name, and all these different fields have a summary field where the summary is kind of just used for whatever information you want to fill in there. So it's not actually used by the system, it's more by the humans that are looking at it. So for this particular setup, I made like I have a Postgres database running, and I have in just some dummy data. All it is just a table called people, and then it has 3 entries that I'm showing here. So I just said dummy data, and then I called the table people. So I'm not calling these people dummies, but anyways, just realize that. So if we go to, I'm going to use PG admin, and I'm going to connect to that Docker Postgres that's running. And then what I'm going to do is to show we have this people table. I'm going to make a backup, and then I'm going to drop the table, and then I'm going to restore it, just so you kind of see how it all works together. And then after that, we'll do some questions and answers and stuff like that. So, all right. So, like this job is scheduled to run daily at 10 a.m. But if I click this little button here, this will go out and manually run the job for us. So now if I go over to the dashboard, now this was a really quick backup. So normally you'd see it under running tasks here. And in this particular case, I'm just going to click here. And what's really cool is it shows you all the output that you actually got from the system. And this is really helpful for debugging purposes. So if you see a backup failed, maybe things aren't communicating properly, or whatever you can imagine, this gives you a nice output for that. And then I'm just going to go through and, yeah, just for posterity, I'll just drop the table. It's fun dropping tables, right? Now, if I go up to, what'd you say?
I said, okay, Bobby.
Yes. And then I'm going to click restore here. So this is a backup I took earlier this morning. It's on here. I'm going to click the most recent one, and then it's confirming, and then we'll hit OK. And now it says 0 tables. I'm probably going to need to reconnect. And I go down to our Shield database that I made. And then basically what we're really going to be looking at here is, yep, the table's back. So I dropped the table, and then I restored it. So that's kind of just a super basic workflow and the different concepts. So apologize if everybody already knows all this, but you can do all this and more with the CLI, and that README and that dev folder in our project will show you how to go through using the CLI for a bunch of that. So
with this, you guys are able to connect to like a CF environment and back up the entire CAPI database with this and restore it.
Yeah. So for our customers, a lot of times what we do is we will actually do exactly that. We back up the CCDB, the Diego DB, and basically all the core CF databases. We usually use this to back them up. Whether it's unfortunately on MySQL or if it's actually fortunately on Postgres, no bias there. Basically, we have plugins for those 2 databases, for example, and whatever the customer happens to be running, we use those to back up the systems itself. We also have, Shield also has a special mode for complete, it has a first-class concept for completely recovering from disaster for the entire cloud Foundry itself, and including BOSH databases and stuff like that. And so we also use this to back up like the core BOSH databases and all of those things. So yeah, this is a true disaster recovery solution for Cloud Foundry, whether it's OSS or PCF. It's a matter of instrumenting into the particular environment of the client, essentially. So I don't know, does that answer the question, or?
Yeah, that answers it. And I saw that it was MIT license. Is it also the MIT license for the UI, or is it just for the core?
It's all in one.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I don't know if anybody have other questions. We have about 7 minutes.
You mentioned complete backup and restore, Wayne. Does it also then back up the blob store, wherever that might be, or which particular types of blob stores?
There is nothing preventing a plugin to be written to back up the blob stores if that's something that somebody desires.
Okay.
It would literally just be another agent plugin that gets written that knows what backing up the blob store means and what restoring it means. And it probably wouldn't be a terrific amount of work.
And Wayne, what we're doing right now for one of our clients is we're actually using it to back up the BOSH blob stores, releases and packages and all that good stuff. And we're using the target to ship it to a local blob store, non-S3 version of an on-prem S3 blob store.
Okay. So
awesome. So yeah, so I guess the answer is yes. Yes, it does.
It's not short by any means. It takes a while. Obviously, your constraint there is the network. But I know we can get the full BOSH blob store backed up and restored in about an hour and a half.
Okay, and Cloud Controller's blob store, kind of similar deal then?
As long as we know where it is on a file system, we can back it up.
Okay. They just might be inconsistent a little bit.
Right. Depending on the activity, right, that's occurring.
Very cool.
Yeah, this is excellent. Any other questions, folks?
If you like, he showed the basically the schedules and stuff like that. If you have an agent that backs up the core databases at a certain time, as well as another agent that backs up the blob stores at that same time, then you could actually have all of the things snapshotted around the same time, right? And then you would minimize your inconsistency surface. But yeah, it's better than nothing, at least.
Right. It's a lot faster than manually resurrecting BOSH, for example.
No, it's very cool.
Yeah, this is great. So we have only about a few more minutes left. Let me remind folks of a few things. So, of course, if you have a project and you want to present, you are more than welcome, right? I mean, part of the idea is to use this call to present what the community is doing that you may not know about. And as I said, our friends from Stock and Wayne have a lot of projects, but we also want to make sure other people have their projects. And with this Zoom revelation now, we'll be able to see what you're doing and do a really cool demo like John and Wayne just did for us. So please make sure you line up your projects, let us know. The other thing is I'm looking for feedback on this call. So if you have feedback, feel free to ping me or Yui or anybody, or Chip directly if you have feedback on me, right? Whatever you have feedback on, just make sure you provide that, and we can collect it. If there are no questions, I want to thank Wayne again for introducing us to Zoom and for Stock and Wayne for this presentation. Thank you, Wayne. That was really good. I owe you a beer. And
Dr. Max, I just want to jump in and say that great part of Zoom is video. I'd like to encourage next time, hopefully people install their video cameras. By the way, I'm Brian Mattel, COO at Stark & Wayne, so you know this person is talking. And if you guys want to know more about Zoom, we use it all the time. This is our tool for pairing and for, we're all cloud companies here, so we all probably have people in remote locations, and this is our tool of choice, which is why we wanted to offer it up to this call, and it'll be on other types of calls in the future too, because we think it's a real great tool. But we also like to see people's faces, so when we run into you at shows or at the coffee shop down the street, we know who we're seeing. It's not just a voice, it's actually a face. So I hope that people will use this to its fullest. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yes, tools, that includes pants and earphones.
Right, I was gonna say, yeah.
In the garden.
Sorry, I want to interject one more quick thing. For Shield, there is a Slack channel under the Cloud Foundry Slack. So if there's any, if you have any questions or anything like that, you can direct it there and someone within the community can help you out. So
yeah. And again, guys, this is MIT license, so nothing's preventing you from trying it. really. So thank you, Stock, anyway. All right, everybody. I guess we'll talk again in March. I will send the notes. I appreciate everybody joining. We'll chat again. Cheers. Don't forget to submit your talk proposal. It's Friday. Okay?
Yes.
Last day. Take care. Take care. Cheers.